Yo, what up, fam? It's your boy Walt coming back to you live and direct. So, I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he was working with his new crypto wallet, and he hit me up, and he was like, "Yo, I'm trying to buy some crypto, but Bitcoin is going for like 6 racks. So, how do you buy crypto if you're not trying to, buy a whole coin?" And I was like, oh yeah, damn, I guess, not everybody knows, how it all breaks down. So I thought to myself, this is actually a pretty good, episode. Maybe there are other people out there who don't know, what's what and who's who as it relates to, the various cryptos. So, that's what this episode is all about. I'm about to break it down for you guys, I'm about to put you up on game. So, work with me. First thing I'm gonna do is get a little bit professorial with y'all for a second, and talk about money and currency, right? Because in order to understand, how cryptocurrencies break down, you need to understand the fundamentals. It's like if you're playing basketball, you got to have the fundamentals. Coach is always telling you, if you can't shoot free throws, if you can't do a layup, you can't start with the fancy shit until you understand how to do the basics. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you the basics. All right. So currencies have 5 basic properties. It's scarcity, fungibility, divisibility, durability, and transferability. Some of y'all might be like, well, what the hell does all that mean? And I could dig it because some of these words are a little bit esoteric. But, scarcity, I mean, that's just goes back to supply and demand. If it's a whole bunch of it, it really ain't worth much. You know what I mean? And so in order for it to have value, there needs to be a limited supply. And that's kind of basics. Y'all, take it to the streets. You know what that means. Fungibility. Now that's a really weird word, but that basically means that, the currency, the money is interchangeable. Meaning if I give you a $20 bill and, my man over here got a $20 bill and we swap them out, like who cares? Like $20 is $20. There's nothing special about this one particular $20 bill versus the other $20 bill. Now, sidebar, and I don't want to confuse you, but I probably am. There's been a lot of hype about these NFT, these non-fungible tokens. That means that individual tokens are special, so you can't swap them out. But I'll cover that in another episode. Right now, what you need to understand is currency is fungible. That's one of the 5 properties. Another property is divisibility. Now, what does that mean? That means basically you can bust it down, right? Meaning, if I was on some Tony Montana-ish, right? Like I'd be like, all right, if I got a key, I could bust that down to half. I could bust that further down into 2/4. I could bust it down into some, you get where I'm going with that, right? But basically it means that, you can bust it down. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Anyway, the 4th property is that it's durability. That just means that it'll stand the test of time, right? Nothing lasts forever, but a good currency, will not quickly wear and tear. It should be, resilient, in the face of, everything that'll come across. You know what I mean? You put it in a wash machine, it should still be legit, et cetera, et cetera. Lastly, transferability. And that's just the basics. It means, it should be able to transfer easily from one person to the next. You know what I'm saying? If I want to give my man $5, to go get a sandwich, I can go give my man the $5. I just transferred that, to him. And so that's basically how that works. So I'm going to repeat this just so that it sinks in. Currencies have 5 properties: scarcity, fungibility, divisibility, durability, and transferability. All right. So now that we all know kind of like what the basics are, let's just relate this to the US dollar. At least my American audience, that's what we all know, and love. Right. And so, you got you one of them blue face hundreds. Does that have the scarcity? I mean, that's debatable. Some of my more erudite friends will have followed the Fed, and they know that there's like mad quantitative easing going on, and so some might say that the U.S. dollar is not scarce enough. But by and large, it's not unlimited supply. At least M0. I'm getting into macroeconomics now. M0 is scarce, right? The funny money out there is a little bit of a different story, but M0 is scarce. Is it fungible? Sure. Like I said, if I got a 20, and you got a 20, and we swapped the 20s, like we both still got 20. There's nothing special about any individual $20 bill. Divisibility, right? Again, back to the Blueface 100. We could break that down into 520s. We could break it down into 1010s. We could break it down to 101s. So the divisibility is there. Durability. I think, I don't know, way back in the day, actually my man Mike, shouts to my man Mike. Mike works at the Treasury. I went on a tour of the Treasury one time and saw how they make the money. And they've got like the special fabric, the special paper that they use to make the money. It's highly durable. And so, the US dollar meets that criteria. And then the transferability, like I said, you could pass bills from one person to the next, and it's all good. So the dollar, the dollar fits the bill. No pun intended. Funny thing, when I was a kid, I don't know, maybe I was like 10 or 11 years old or something like that. My dad was in the military. He got stationed in Germany. We moved to Germany. And, all I knew was dollars, quarters, let me get a nickel to go, put in the bubble gum machine or whatever. Like, that's what I knew as a kid. But when we get over there, they had these things called Deutschmarks. So this was my first experience, moving from one currency to another currency. You know what I mean? They didn't have, individual dollars. They had marks. And what was wild is that I was used to, everything $1 and above being paper money, and then like, quarters and dimes and nickels, being like coins. But over there, like, the 1 mark, which, would be your $1 equivalent. Not that the exchange rate was equivalent, but you know what I'm saying? 1 mark was a coin. And I think they even had five mark coins. And I think the 5 mark, you can get in either coin or a bill. And then the rest, were higher. But the 5 mark was actually foomph. Foomph. That word always felt funny, coming, rolling off my tongue. And I remember always walking around saying funfunk, which is like 55, right? That's what that word means. But anyway, that's a sidebar. But as a kid, again, I was exposed to using different currencies because once we traveled outside of Germany, back then, there was no euro. It was like the French, we go to France, we had to buy francs. So now we're spending French francs. You know what I mean? And it was the same, for every country. Switzerland, they had their own francs. In Italy, they had their lira or whatever. But that was my experience as a kid. So this notion of now using another currency like cryptocurrency is natural to me, but it might not be natural to everybody else. But it's no different. And speaking of the euro, like, people need to understand the euro is relatively new. Like, when I was a kid in Germany, there was no such thing as the euro. All the European countries, they had their own currency. It wasn't until later that they all banded together to create this union and create this common currency that they could use throughout the union. So the notion of creating new currencies is nothing new. So, creating a Bitcoin or an Ether or a Tether or whatever, it's really quite natural. Sometimes you got to get off the block to experience these things, but I'm telling you, it's quite natural. So, I think I hit that point. So basically, Bitcoin's is skyrocketing, right? Like, I think the last time I checked, it was like over $60,000 per coin. And so the question is like, well, how do you buy it if you're not willing to spend $60,000? Well, the way you buy it is because the Bitcoin is a currency, and it's got those 5 properties, And remember, one of those properties is divisibility, right? And so, little do a lot of people know, Bitcoin is divisible. So I'm going to let you guys know, and I haven't committed this stuff to memory myself. There's a few that I know, right? Like the smallest unit, of Bitcoin is called a Satoshi. And the reason why it's named Satoshi is in honor or in homage to Satoshi Nakamoto, who is the creator, the inventor of Bitcoin. Now, nobody knows who Satoshi is. Satoshi could be an individual. Satoshi could be a group of individuals. Nobody knows. But let's just go with it's a cat named Satoshi, and the smallest unit of Bitcoin is Satoshi, and that's what it is. But the rest of it kind of follows the metric system. So you've got the unit of Bitcoin breaks down. You can go decibits. So that's like 1/10 of a Bitcoin. You can go centibits. That's 1/100th of a Bitcoin. You can go millibits. That's 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin. You can go a microbit. And that's 1 to the 12th power or something like that of a Bitcoin. And then you've got a Satoshi, which is like 1 times 10 to the 18th power, of a Bitcoin or whatever. But it goes the other way as well, too. You can get a decabit, which is 10. A hectobit, obviously that's 5, right? And then a kilobit, which is 1,000, and a megabit, right? So those are the units of Bitcoin. And I'll probably when I edit this, I'll probably put something up on the screen so you can see exactly like how much of each one of those is. But I should have looked this up before I did this video. I think like 1 Satoshi might be like, a thousandth of a penny, or like it's something like really small or something like that. So you can buy a rack of those, without spending a whole lot of dollars. So that's one of the ways how people can still buy Bitcoin, even though a single Bitcoin costs so much money. The other currency I wanted to talk about, which is another one of my favorites, is called Ether, which is the currency that runs on the Ethereum network. Anyway, Ethereum, it breaks down, into denominations as well. But in this case, like with Bitcoin was like in the middle, and you had, break it down into units, but also it had it had higher units that were higher than Bitcoin. With Ether is the highest denomination, and so which means it's well, it doesn't get bigger than that. Ether is the highest. Now the smallest denomination of Ether, which is unitary, is called the Wei. It's spelled WEI. I don't know if that's Chinese or if it's something totally different. Anyway, it's called Wei. And 1 Ether gives you 1 quintillion Wei. That's a gang of Wei. I think I watched some space show like the universe or something like that. And I think they said 1 quintillion was more than all the grains of sand on the entire planet Earth. That's a lot. So you're talking about a lot of stuff there. So let me go ahead and give you the denominations though. Wei is the smallest. Then you got kilowei or kwei. You've got megawei or mwei. You got gigawei or gwei. Then you've got micro ether, milliliter, and then ether. And again, that kind of follows the metric system, right? So the interesting thing though is the kilowei is also referred to as the Babbage. The megawei is referred to as the Lovelace. The gigawei is referred to as the Shannon, and the micro ether is referred to as the Szabo, and the milliliter is referred to as the Finney. Now, all those names, those are luminaries in either computer science and or blockchain and cryptocurrency as well. Hal Finney, rest in peace, was one of the people who first communicated with Satoshi and helped basically, resolve some of the bugs and get the thing up and running. And then you've got like Lovelace, right? It's like for Ada Lovelace, who is, an early computer scientist, and the programming language Ada is named after her. Anyway, just some typical geek stuff that you find, anywhere you've got programmers or computer scientists. So anyway, if you think about it, from the Satoshi to the Lovelace and the Finney, it's paying homage to people who the inventors of these currencies respect. It's not much different than putting Benjamin Franklin on $100 bill, right? Or George Washington on the $1 bill. You're paying homage to people that you feel are great, and it's kind of cool, right? So that's basically it. That's a wrap. Like I said, my cousin Donnie, hit me up and he was asking me about, what was what, as he was trying to purchase, make some initial purchases of crypto or whatever. And, I figured, if he could use this information, then a lot of other people out there could probably use this information. So, consider yourself put down, and, I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.